everyone, and welcome to another brand new spoiler review episode for the Book of Boba Fett here from the
Geek
Buddies! Hey!
Well, we're back again with you for another week to talk about the most recent episode here, episode 3 or chapter 3 of the Book of Boba Fett. We're going to get into so many things here. This is a spoiler review episode, so this is your first kind of warning. If you haven't seen the episode, go and watch it and come on back and hang out with us. We're going to introduce ourselves now. I am the Outlaw, John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies. Mike?
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies and a co-host here on the Geek Buddies.
Shit.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, where if you watched our previous Geek Buddies episode, the thing that I was on hold for, I booked.
Yeah!
I'm not allowed to say what it is,
Hey!
but it's a comedy.
Nice.
And I'm also a co-host here on the Geek Buddies.
We get to add a new thing to the you might have seen me on now. I'm very
I
excited.
mean, I don't know when the show's coming on, so it could be a while. But we'll see.
Still, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And joining us again this week, she's the co-host of Force Toast Pod, the co-host of the Jedi Way. And we've been very lucky and blessed to have her grace our show with her presence and her knowledge. The great Laura Kelly, how are you?
I'm amazing. Yay. Thank you so much for having me back, guys. Always fun to talk about these maybe controversial episodes of the Book of Boba Fett.
Man.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
I tell you what, can we just take a minute?
Yeah.
Just talk to the Star Wars fans
Sure.
out there.
Let's
if
do
you're
it.
listening to this,
Or
I
watching.
assume you're a Star Wars fan or watching it. Guys, we all love Star Wars. Let's not fight.
Gotta calm
Let's not
down.
fight. Listen, I love Last Jedi. I will die on that hill.
Oof.
I'm
Same.
at least, we're 50-50 on this show as far as Last Jedi lovers.
It's true.
We all
It's
get
true.
along. We're not blocking each other on Twitter. I'm not calling anybody names. We're all
yet.
happy. That galaxy far, far away is real big. There's plenty of room for all of us.
Why does the Star Wars fandom forget the basic rule of Star Wars, which is to be accepting of other people and other people's opinions? I'm just so confused by it. I went through it last night posting I posted a throwaway tweet. It was literally I was like, yeah, that's so funny. I'm gonna go and get some dinner. I come back and there's like paragraphs of tweets of people who are upset of my point of view. It's like, it was just my opinion. I'm
Listen.
allowed to have my opinion. I mean, watching two of my colleagues, two of my peers go in on this, working out whatever's going on in their lives on this tweet, I was like, this is insane to me. So I don't know, guys. It's just Star Wars.
I posted a picture of the live action Pykes and the animated Pykes and said, hey, what do we think? And then I had to go in and referee people and tell them to stop calling each other names.
Laura, you have no experience with this, do you?
No, I've never heard of anything like this. Are you telling me that people in the Star Wars fandom don't get along? Is that that's what we're Yeah, it's not a surprise to me at all. I mean, after the first episode of this show and like some of the discourse we saw, this was no surprise whatsoever to me, and probably not to anyone else. So
certainly, yes. And I think the biker gang is the one that's leading the way in terms of the division and the anger on
I can't wait.
Online. And by the way, let's clarify. If you like the biker gang, great. And if you don't like it, guess what? Also great. It's a free world. Shannon, do you want to chime in on this?
I mean, I am not on social media as the last couple days very much. But
man.
I did see a lot of responses where people are like, gosh, don't express an opinion about Star Wars if you're not ready for people to come at you lightsabers out. I mean, look, everything's subjective. Everything's subjective. Just because someone may not agree with your opinion doesn't mean they that it's open season on them. Just enjoy the show. And if you don't, if you make a comment about it, be respectful. But there's no reason. We don't need to fight. That happens in a galaxy far, far away.
Do I think less of Shannon and John because they don't respect The Last Jedi? Absolutely.
First of all, that's an inappropriate.
Am I still nice to them? Am I
incorrect
still nice
assessment.
to them about it? Am I still nice to them about it? Of course I am.
yeah.
Bad example.
Don't you humor him, Laura. We've been very clear on how we feel about The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi, last hour is some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen. First, mama jokes, no thanks. Anyway, but listen, and here's another clue, especially for my colleagues, and I think you know who I'm talking to if you happen to be watching this. Like, you don't have to chime in. You can just move on knowing you have a different opinion. You don't have to tweet. Resist. Anyway, all right. So we're gonna jump into this episode 3 here. Chapter after an incredible and phenomenal chapter 2, we come back here for chapter 3. And this is essentially feels like a filler or bridge episode, which is the kinder term for it. Overall, we're going to get into everything that happened here on the show, break it down, give our honest opinions, and not call each other names and not try to block each other or mute each other. We're going to get into this here. And so just a last final spoiler warning here. If you haven't seen the episode, go and watch it and then come up back and join us. All right, let's get into this thing now before we run out of time. All right, we start out seeing those spider things that we saw from the trailer there. BD-8 is showing Boba all the businesses that were under the protection of Jabba. The name that shall not be spoken, apparently, is Voldemort in Star Wars. After the barge disaster, he explains there was a power vacuum, or it explains, I don't want to put gender on a robot or droid. Bib Fortuna allowed Mos Espa to be split into 3 sections. We hear about the Trandoshans, who took the city center, the Aqualish, who took the workers' district, the Cardoonians, who took the starport and the upper sprawl. And Bib relied on an uneasy alliance that aligned the pockets of Mayor Mokshays, basically affirming that he was an interim manager for this whole thing. Fennec wants to ask around because she suspects that the Hutts are behind the assassins. And then out of nowhere, without an appointment, Stephen Root, a.k.a. Lord the Peel, watermonger in the workers' district, comes down the stairs. He tells Boba that no one respects him. The streets have turned to chaos. He's insulted at the disrespect after the assassination attempt. Street gangs have been stealing his inventory. He brokers sales between vapor farmers. He reveals that Tatooine was once surrounded by water. And this gang that is stealing water from him is half man and half machine. Says he will double his tribute if Boba rids the streets of these scourges. And we cut to nighttime on the streets of Mos Espa. Boba's walking with Fennec and the Gamorrean guards. He comes up on a street gang. I'm going to say this. Prettiest little street gang I've ever seen. They talk about needing work and being unable to afford the water, which is why they stole it. Lord of the Peel has been charging a month's wages for a week's worth of water. Boba admires the gang's guts, and specifically Thrasher's guts, and asks them to work for him. Lortha is mad at this, and Boba pays him the $500 credits instead of the 1,300 credits he is owed. And if he doesn't like it, he can head to Mos Eisley. Snicker, snicker, laugh, laugh. All right, Michael, hell of a beginning. We're back in Jabba's palace. We have Lortha Peel coming in. We have BD-8 telling us the scope of what Boba's got to do. And then Boba is kind of pushed to go and deal with the situation and goes out himself and essentially connects with this street gang and hires them. Thoughts?
Okay, so a couple things. One, right off the bat, I just want to talk about those spider things, as you call them, the Bomar monks, which are the original inhabitants of Jabba's palace, who have taken their consciousnesses and put them in those little, that's the red jar on the outside of the spider, and they want to live outside of everything. Here's the only reason I bring it up. It's not important. I just love Star Wars shit. Like, when they made Return of the Jedi, some guy was like, grab that spider thing, pour some Kool-Aid in there, just have him walk by, it'll be great. But 30 years later, we have an extensive, very, very weird, very, very complicated origin for these aliens. And I just love that about Star Wars. I love that some creature effect dude makes something up, and then we get a Star Wars book about it, and they show up in a comic, and the next thing you know, we have the weirdest thing in the world to just discuss. So, Bomar monks, there you go. I thought everything that 8D8 said was interesting. I particularly liked a couple things. One, the idea that Bib Fortuna led by not leading. Like, Bib Fortuna basically said to all these street gangs, hey, you guys do everything, I'll grease the wheels. Like, he basically had no control, which is why when Boba comes in and shoots him, things really go to shit quickly because everyone is power grabbing all over the place. With Stephen Root coming in, the other thing that I found interesting is just his reference to the sail barge disaster.
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah.
I saw somebody else on Twitter saying this, that it really does seem like they're just not going to say that the rebels came in and kicked Jabba's ass and that Leia choked him to death. They're going to be like, hey, there was a malfunction. We don't know what happened, which I kind of just find funny. The most interesting thing is Stephen Root coming in and kind of saying that, mentioning once again that Tatooine was underwater. Like, this is, I mean, I think we talked about it last week because it came up with the Tuskens. This is something from like the comics and from the novels. This idea that Tatooine used to be covered in water. This alien race came in and enslaved everybody. And when everybody rebelled, the alien race just like bombed the planet and destroyed the ecosystem, which is kind of like deep Star Wars nerd knowledge. But the fact that it came up with the Tuskens last week, it literally came up again this week. The idea of water keeps coming up in Boba's vision, seeing the water on the sand. Like, we keep going to Camino. Like, there just seems to be this kind of reference to this a lot, which really makes me wonder if this is going to be important for where we're going, either thematically or plot-wise. Like, I'm just really curious as to why this keeps coming up. So the street biker gang. I am pro street biker gang. I think it was I think they weren't handled subtly. I think maybe they were a little broad and over the top. But I like what they were trying to do with Boba's relationship with them, and I like when you add new things to Star Wars, I guess. I think there was a time where we all thought pit droids were the stupidest comic relief thing in the world, and now we just accept pit droids as part of Star Wars. And I kind of feel like Dayglow speeder bikes and droid enhancements on people is something that maybe feels a little cheesy right now, but I feel like in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, this is just going to be a part of Star Wars. And I did like the idea that, like, once again, we see how Boba's doing things differently. Like, everyone in Tatooine is used to, I'm a merchant, I'm above a street gang, so if I tell you to go do something, you just go take care of them, and then I give you money. And Boba coming in and doing this completely differently and offering them jobs clearly strikes everybody as that's weird. Like, to the street gang, they're like, oh, wow, that's cool. I'm going to go work for this guy. And for Stephen Root, he's like, that's not how it works. And you see him making alliances with people at the bottom rung of the pyramid or the bottom level, and pissing off the people that are higher up the food chain. And that's what he did in the desert with the Tuskens. That's what he's doing here. And, you kind of see that paying off later on with the biker gang and the Gamorreans and everybody, that having a lot of people that are maybe not respected by others on your side is a good thing. So I thought that was all really interesting. And we'll get more into the speeder bike gang later, but I personally welcome them with open arms into this galaxy far, far away.
You know what? Don't play, Kate. Don't play to the fans. Damn it. Laura Kelly, talk to me about these opening two scenes. We get more with 88 kind of explaining. You would think we would have had this explained in the first episode, but as we've been progressing here, I guess we're seeing that as the Mos Espa kind of fans out and we see more of it, we're now understanding all these places that 88 is like laying out that Jabba had been in charge of. And then he gets goaded by this moisture farmer, in essence, or watermonger, rather, to go and kind of confront this gang. So you tell me, what did you think about these opening scenes? And definitely, what did you think about the introduction of the street gang?
Oh, boy. All right. Well, starting with 88.
Let's do it, Laura.
I love that we're kind of like, we're peppering in these little bits sort of slowly. We didn't want to like overload anyone in the first episode of like, here's everything that's happened. Here's how Tatooine is now. I like that we're just kind of gradually laying the foundation. I think that's the whole purpose of the first season of a show, and it's probably going to continue to feel like that for the rest of this season, of the rest of the 7 episodes that we're getting out this season. But 88 has proven to be like very useful, so I'm enjoying him, and I'm enjoying some of the little comic relief we get from him later on in this episode. But I want to address the concept that we probably talked about during Mandalorian reviews, which is that of all of these cameos that keep coming up. Now, adding Milton from Office Space is not an unwelcome addition for me. Sure. I understand why a lot of people, having these cameos kind of takes them out of it. I totally understand that. I'm not going to complain about Stephen Root showing up in this because I think Milton from Office Space is awesome. That's always what I will think of him anytime he shows up on screen in anything, including Star Wars. So that's where we're at with him. But I do like him as a character. I'm kind of hoping that we get more of him. This introduction of the street gang, their look and feel and their presence in this, I hate to plead the fifth, but I'm just kind of indifferent. It was not something that stood out to me as being right or wrong. it just was. And I mean, my first thought was, okay, this looks like the street game from Back to the Future 2. Kind of weird that you stuck it in Star Wars, but I don't have a problem with it.
Sure.
Major Biff's gang vibes in Back to the Future 2, but I whatever, it's fine. Sophie Thatcher, I was not familiar with. I looked up on IMDb because I don't think they said her name at any point in the episode, but I guess her name is Drash, Drash. And looking through her filmography, I realized that she was in the 2018 film Prospect, starred with none other than the other Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal. So that movie's worth checking out, I think, because I enjoyed it. There was some speculation, I guess, sort of early on, just based on her look, that she might be playing the character Arden Lin, who was a Legends character that was featured in the game Masters of Terrascasi. I'm kind of glad that they're not tying all of that Legends material in. That stuff is what kind of takes me out of it. I like that she's a new character. The fact that she's got these droid parts and all of the Street Gang members in her, are with her, have these weird droid enhancements. I just think it's kind of cool. I didn't have a problem with it. I think it's very strange that so many people did, but maybe the issue is mostly their look, which is a matter of opinion, and that's fine. But yeah, for the most part, I'm just kind of indifferent to the look of this. I have found it very fascinating reading everybody's reactions to the look and feel of adding this Street Gang into the show.
Okay, fair enough, Laura. It's more position to take, I think. Shannon McClung, thoughts on this overall? What do you think of this opening scene here? And also, when we get to the biker Street Gang, did this feel a little simplistic in terms of political? I mean, the fact that somebody could just walk in and talk to Boba, who's supposedly the major daimyo. Don't you think this was a little weird? What'd you think about this? And then, of course, the Street Gang.
3 episodes in, this is one of my favorite parts of the show, are Fett and Fennec taking these audiences with, the locals. I think this is actually a lot of fun to watch. And watching how 8D8 referred to Jabba, he who should not be named or whatever, you kind of get an idea of how the relationship was with Bib, that this was probably a very ineffectual leader. Yeah. He did not want to hear Jabba's name. Like he didn't need to be reminded of the daimyo that he isn't. So the fact that 8D8 is kind of, tiptoeing around it. And then
that's a good point. I didn't think about that. That's good.
Well, you see how Fett is just kind of like, why would you not say that? I was like, well, I didn't want to insult you. I was like, well, yeah, now I am insulted. Stephen Root is one of my favorite actors. And the menace that he has the capability to play, if you've seen him in other stuff, is really great. He totally took me out of this scene because it looked like Steve, they threw on some Tatooine garb and Stephen Root walked in. This casting, I don't know if it would have made a difference if they'd thrown some makeup on him, make him look a little more alien, but it really, it took me out. And which is a shame because I actually really like Stephen Root, but I was like, I don't know why this one is sticking out to me so bad. Like, I think the opportunity that to me is kind of being wasted with your smaller roles in the show is you're grabbing established people that the audience already has sort of a preconceived notion of. And with Star Wars, I think you can show off new faces, and you should show off new faces because to the audience, they are the character. They are not Stephen Root. If this is someone brand new coming into this, galaxy far, far away. And I say this as an actor that I'm like, God, I've known a handful of people who have been on the shows. Boy, I'd love to have an opportunity to get on this. The shot of Mos Espa at night, I thought was gorgeous. Agreed. I was like, this is so cool. It really set the bar for what happens when we get down into it at night and we meet the biker gang. I love the concepts. I love the concept of a cybernetically enhanced biker gang. I did not like the execution. I had no issue with any of the actors' performances. It's literally just how they looked. And I think it's because you've got one guy with the eye, and it just looked a little cheap. And I was like, I don't really like the way this looks. And their speeders are so perfect and they're so bright. And you can justify it in the writing. They're young people. They really, this is like the kids in the 50s with their hot rods. Like they want them to look immaculate. But I'm like, okay, you're stealing water from this guy, but you're also dressed kind of fancy for what I consider Tatooine to be. Again, this is no reflection on the performances at all. I thought all the performances were perfectly fine, but it just doesn't look right to me. And then the moment with Fett and Stephen Root, I actually thought that was really good. I was like, that's great. Like, Fett is sort of establishing his base. Temuera Morrison is constantly delivering a really, really great performance. I mean, he's a very magnetic actor, and I just wish some of the creative choices around him would support that performance.
That's fair. I was thinking about that as he was, we'll get to that later on, when he was riding the Bantha. I was just like looking at him going, look, what an incredible ride this guy has been on. And now at this advanced age, being the lead of this show and getting to show what he can really do. There's an article that our friend Sorry You Blue posted about John Ortiz, where John Ortiz is talking about how many years it took him to finally become the lead of a show. And this is a guy we've seen in numerous projects for 20 years, but that's the way it is for people of color. Sometimes you have to fight and keep fighting until finally you get that shot. And so seeing Temuera getting this shot, it's great to watch him. So I agree with you, Shannon, 100%. All right, so I'm going to go in on this. I didn't mind Stephen Root at all. To me, he's a character actor, so sliding him in here didn't bother me one bit. It made sense to me, no problem. And I almost wanted him to say that was the matter if I had to pick an singing, because I love him in Oh Brother Art Thou, and I just wanted a little fun with him. So I love him because he's such a chameleon. As Shannon said, he can go from menace to completely submissive, depending on what the role calls for, very believably. So no issues with that. And it's a great way to put a face on these other people that are going to be the people that Boba is going to battle. These people who own businesses, these people who have these situations where they're stepping on people who are lower in the financial strata or economic strata of Mos Espa. So now you have a face to pin that on. So it makes sense to me. It's a recognizable face. Okay, we do that. So I like the opening. I like 88 kind of laying everything out. So now we as the audience have an idea of all the places Boba has to juggle to make sure he can kind of be in control here. And we're seeing the scope, an overwhelming scope of the work he's really going to have to do. Because the first 2 episodes, he hasn't been in any kind of rush to establish his power here. And now we're seeing like there's a lot of places you really need to go here, guy, to kind of make sure you and Fennec to make sure you can, seal up all the cracks and make sure your power is there. And Fennec is the one that keeps saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. And he keeps doing it his way. And we'll see if that's going to come to a breaking point at some point. But yeah, I agree with you, Shannon. Love the back and forth. And now we get to the street gang. So this took me completely out of it. I think the bike should have been a little scuffed up, a little dirty. If they're poor and they can't afford anything, why does my boy have like the nicest haircut I've seen? Like all of those things. And I saw people push back. Well, you don't know how poor people, if they do. I've been poor, motherfuckers. I know. Like, I didn't have, you know what I'm saying? I had kids. I didn't have no fucking Nikes. Like there's a difference. And I think that shows. And people are like, oh, maybe they stole those bikes. That's you putting that shit in there. It's not in there. You can't put shit in there that isn't in there just to legitimize it. Because then at that point, you can explain away fucking anything. So why even have TV or film criticism? So, I mean, to me, in my opinion, that's where I got a little bit like, I was like, why is this in here? They're all so pretty. They're not scuffed up. They're all, it felt to me like they were playing towards the younger base of Star Wars fans, which I totally understand as a business that it's a smart move to do that. I just would like to have seen them a little more ragged out with the clothes that are more believable. And the cyborg thing, I don't know. I'm going to have a tough time with that because that feels like Robert Rodriguez is Alita invading Star Wars. And I'm not the biggest fan of having that, even though it logically makes sense to me that you could see that combination of things, especially because Fennec herself has some artistry, and we saw Luke's hand, obviously. So the cybernetic combination thing is not necessarily that big of an issue, but it's so overt with this gang that I wasn't ready for such a change overall. It doesn't mean it can't grow on me down the road. Just initially, all I saw was Power Rangers, Back to the Future 2, and whatever else you want to throw in there. And I get it. It's an homage to American Graffiti. None of you motherfuckers are going to tell me I don't know that it's an homage to American Graffiti. I know it is, but there's a difference between an homage and doing an homage well. And I don't think they did, as some of my colleagues on this show have said, I don't think the execution was 100% correct overall. But I'm not saying it shouldn't be in Star Wars. I'm just saying it was an incorrect execution. Sorry.
I would say, I know everybody loves Robert Rodriguez, and I think Robert Rodriguez is great. I don't think this is a Disney and Star Wars being like, let's cater to the young kids today. I think this is a Robert Rodriguez thing. I think Robert Rodriguez can get overly broad sometimes and get so excited about his shiny new thing that he wants to make it look shiny in the show. Like, I completely agree with what Shannon said. Like, I really welcome this with open arms. I think cool biker gangs with souped up speeder bikes and droid enhancements fits perfect in the world of Star Wars. And I think you can take that idea and run with it and make it super cool. So that's why I watched this and I was like, yeah, I'm good with this. I think that they were too shiny. They should be dustier. Or you, to your point, you make a point of it. Like, if you want to make the choice that these guys are poor and, you know, the bottom rung of the ladder, but they make sure their bikes look great, make that a part. Like, they are making their bikes look really nice, and a Jawa comes up and they're like, hey, get off my bike. This is all I got. I'm going to make it look good. Get out of here. You know, like, there's little things that you can do to justify if you really want to do that. But yeah, I think that when it comes to this biker gang, conceptually, it totally makes sense to me. Execution wise, is particularly when we get into the final chase, that's where we run into some problems.
Keystone Cops. Yeah, I mean, and the problem also is this, and I'm gonna throw this out there too. We've already seen a biker gang. Do you think that biker gang is going to allow this biker gang to exist in their own town? I don't think so. And so to me, this is where the difference lies. That biker gang is tearing people up and burning houses down and killing people. And you think they're going to let these people that just stepped out of the haircut and got United Colors of Benetton clothes on, you think they're going to let them exist? Come on now. I'm just saying. All right, I'll throw it out there. Let's move on. And people can go after me in the comments section if they want. That's fine. All right, we go back to Jabba's. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mike. Shannon, will you say something?
Laura just said they will.
No, I just said they will.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. You're watching me. I'm not watching you. All right, back to Jabba's palace. It's back to tank time again. We're going back to Kamino, and we see his father take off in the fire spray. We cut to Boba riding a bantha, and he looks awesome doing this, riding into town and confronting Jawa looking for the Pykes. And we see helmets of stormtroopers on Pykes like we saw in The Mandalorian. And we see a little somebody scurrying past there with her little robots. Boba walks in to talk to the leader of the Pykes here and he says to Boba, the superiors on Obadiah refuse to pay protection to two parties, saying the Nikto Sand Riders are also getting paid for protection from the Pykes. They don't want to pay two sets of people. Boba says he'll resolve it. And I put here, by the way, shout out to my man's robes. They look awesome. And they did. I wanted to buy that shit. Boba is riding in the desert back to the Tusken camp and sees that it has been destroyed with the bantha and Tuskens killed, including the young Tusken kid he had become friends with. Again, and I put this here again, very reminiscent of what we saw in the past in pictures, what we've seen not documented, but shown in films, of what happened when these troops went through Native American villages, set them on fire, killed men, women, and children in the past. And this could apply to any indigenous population around the world. I'm sure there are plenty of stories of similar things happening by people in power. He sees the Tusken leader is also dead there. The mark we saw from that biker gang is a more rougher biker gang is on the tent. I put, it's on now. He burns the bodies in a pyre and burns his piece of the branch with their bodies. Laura, there's a lot of symbolism here in this situation with what's going on with Boba. He goes into, obviously going back to Kamino, but also having this conversation with the Pikes. And did his actions indirectly lead to this situation happening to the Tusken people?
Unfortunately, I think they did. I'm sure that speeder gang was, parked nearby, watching out, waiting for him to leave. But I think that I have a hard time with this scene with the Tuskens because, yes, it's really devastating to see that happen and to see all of you be right about the fact that this was going to end in tragedy. Congratulations. I hope you guys are proud of yourselves. But the thing is that there's a bunch of things we didn't see though in this scene. We did not see the warrior dead. We did not see the child dead. We did not see the Massive that has been with the child in every episode so far. And I think that there's a little bit of hope there that maybe they're not all gone. I mean, we saw like 3 dead banthas and 3 dead Tuskens, and that was it. So I'm not totally convinced that we're done with what's happening in the flashbacks yet. Although I do think it was an interesting choice this time. We sort of broke the format and only got a 6-minute flashback as opposed to it being sort of half of the episode. I think that we're probably going to continue with that, but I kind of hope that I would like to see that a little bit more resolved. I just don't want to, I'm not going to sit here and just accept that those 3 characters that I really liked from that flashback time period are now gone. I need evidence. I mean, even when you have a body in Star Wars, that doesn't necessarily mean that person's going to stay dead. We didn't even get bodies with these
Darth
people,
Maul.
so that's,
you can
that's
get
the
chopped
point
in half and you'll be fine. Like, it's good.
Exactly.
Spider legs. That's all you need.
Your anger can keep your guts inside.
Oh yeah.
I'll verify that.
For sure. One thing that you skipped over, and I just have to shout out the wart that we saw at the very beginning that sticks its tongue out and eats not only whatever reptilian creature was crawling on the ground, but also the bird that was going after it and then burped. And that's one of my favorite things in Return of the Jedi. I love that kind of stupid shit in Star Wars. And I love that we brought it back in this episode.
Absolutely.
This show is paying homage constantly to Return of the Jedi, and that makes me very happy. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to cover here. Nope, I think that's it for me.
Anything with the Pykes, the back and forth with the Pykes? What do you think's going on there, Laura? Do you think there's a little intrigue?
I don't know. I'm a little bit annoyed that they really do look kind of Star Trek-y to me. I get that they're sort of like built to look a little bit more like the Tuskens. Their costumes just don't look right to me for some reason. For some reason, even more so than like the speeder bike gang. Like that's what's standing out to me is that these Pyke costumes just are a little bit unusual. I do think that I think it's nice that we got the name of this gang, I think, for the first time at this part, the Kintan Striders.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's shown up in Star Wars before, but I think unfortunately Boba leaving the camp probably prompted them to strike at that point.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think? I mean, I'm a Star Trek fan. Maybe that's why I like those costumes. But what did you think about the Pykes here? What did you think about this situation with Boba? And then, of course, him coming upon the Tusken Raiders. And what is the symbolism of seeing his dad? What's the symbol?
Yeah,
Keep going back to it,
Mike. Like water.
Yeah.
Water is a big I mean, obviously water on Tatooine is a big thing in general because there's not a lot of it. Yeah. But water as a symbol keeps coming up. And we now, 3 episodes in, 3 times have seen Kamino, the waves of Kamino. We've seen the same shot of Jango leaving. We've seen Boba's reflection in the glass. Like, I don't think this is just a reminder at this point. Like, we're going to keep coming back to this. So there's clearly something there because it's very, very important to him.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see where that resolves itself. As far as I think the Pyke's robes look great. Like, great tailor. Give me his number. But I do think my issue is more, and look, I get it. Like, the Pyke's design in the Clone Wars is super weird and pushed to a crazy design level. And if you were to do that in a live action show, you're basically probably going to go CG with it and it's going to be a lot of money. So a lot easier to do these prosthetics. I do wish, and I posted this on Twitter and people have been talking about it. I wish that they had pushed it another 10 to 15% in the weird direction of the Pykes. I don't expect them to do the giant crazy heads and everything, but I do wish they looked a little bit different. I do feel like they're nice fish-faced aliens, and it looks fine, and I accept this as the Pyke design in live action. I wish it was a little bit weirder, just in homage of how weird they are in Clone Wars. I thought the Pyke scene was super interesting. This is the part of Star Wars that I get super into because I'm super nerdy. But I love all of the crime syndicate stuff that happens in Clone Wars in the comics. I love all of the different warring factions of the underworld, and I love that we're really bringing that into the live action. Also, just to be clear here, I wrote in my notes when I wrote the Pykes, the meeting with the Pykes, I wrote those fucking guys. Like, that guy straight up knew. You know how that biker gang knew to go to the Tuskens? They weren't in the sand waiting for him to leave. The Pykes straight up said, we have a meeting with Boba. He's going to be here. Right. Go take care of this. Like, the Pykes straight up are behind this. Like, if you know anything of the Pykes from the animated series or anything, like, they are manipulative, double-crossing bastards. So they played it super nice in that meeting, being like, hey, we're excited to do business with you. As long as you take care of this problem, we'll be great. Wonderful. What great meeting. They knew what was going down. I'm with Laura. If I don't see a body, I don't think you're dead. Okay. And so I still am holding out hope that not all of the Tuskens have been destroyed. I did find it interesting, just between the burned out Tusken village and burning them in the pyre. very strong Luke references.
Yes.
George Lucas loves a rhyme, and sort of coming back to your home in Tatooine and finding it burned out and everybody dead is straight out of episode 4, and then taking your loved ones and burning them in a pyre, straight out of Return of the Jedi. Yeah. So just kind of seeing these sort of not even homages, but just similarities between our hero's journey here in Boba and Luke's journey in the original trilogy, I thought was pretty neat too.
Yeah, Shannon, I mean, the Pyke leader's like, what's going on? What's the big deal? Swinging around his liquid in his cup. He didn't seem like he had any issues at all in this situation. So clearly he was 1 or 2 steps ahead of Boba. And this is, I'm sensing, Shannon, I don't know if you're sensing this and Mike and Laura, but this is leading to something. The fact that, the watermonger, right? The watermonger come down and said, hey, no one respects you. The mayor keeps messing with him. The major domo, as we're going to see, keeps messing with him. Everyone keeps messing with him. And at some point, it feels like Boba's going to be like, I need to remind everybody who the hell I fucking am. And we're going to see like Michael Corleone killing the head of the 5 families, I think, at some point. But what do you think of this sequence here? Do you think we're heading towards that, these little disrespectful situations for Boba and the loss of people that he cared about? Are we heading towards this eventual break where he just kills everybody?
I don't know if it's going to be to where he kills everybody. I think they are going somewhat family friendly with the show. But I do think there is a reckoning coming. And as Vogel said, the Pykes are 100% behind everything. And unless you saw a Nikto Sandrider or a Kenton Strider do that little symbol, like, you don't know how it got there. I mean, that's my guess, is the guys at the beginning, Mokshays may have hired those assassins, but Mokshays was acting in the interest of the Pyke. Like, everything to me is going to lead back to the Pykes. Yeah. And, when Vogel and I were actually texting about this after the episode came out, but like, this was the Tuskens going away. This was not something I wanted to be right about. I was like, this is a big bummer. But because we didn't see the bodies of the kid and the warrior and the chief in the last episode made mention that there are many Tusken tribes all over the place. Like, okay, they're coming back. Like, they're coming back with some backup at some point. The Pykes, to get the kind of tiny faces to match the animated version, it seems like it would be such a challenge. I do agree with Vogel. They probably could have turned the dial a little bit more on the weirdness, but where they landed, I still think it's pretty good. And how much you are able to glean from the makeup, I was like, I think this is pretty good.
And props to Phil Lamar, who did the voice of the Pyke, I believe. Yeah.
But overall, like, I was actually a little bummed, like, not that I needed to see the slaughter of the tribe, but because the episode was only 38 minutes, I'm like, I wish we'd gotten a little bit more with them. Yeah. I wish, and I think that would have made our hearts break harder if you'd gotten a moment to where Boba, it does have a moment with the chief, does have a moment with the kid. So, and by the end, like, when he comes back and you see just the devastation, I think as an audience that gets us even more on his side.
Yeah, and maybe there is a scene coming in the next few episodes where he finds the female Tusken Raider and they have a conversation, and it's told in flashback. And Star Wars doesn't necessarily do a lot of flashbacks, but that's a flashback that could work to show what happened, and he can find out who's really behind everything that's going on. Not that he doesn't already kind of suspect, but I like this. I like the scene. I like I love the political intrigue stuff, the back and forth, all of that. I dig it, and I just want Boba on top of a bantha. I want that as a T-shirt, for God's sakes. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Where were we? Okay, he is. And Laura, you mentioned something. We might be. I mean, we're about to get to the Fennec Shan memory in the way this is going. So maybe the next back the tank thing is how we get him finding Fennec Shan and working on her, and then maybe even a Mandalorian or Cobb Vanth situation as well. All right, so just when Boba is burning this branch, which is really symbolic, he is awakened by an attack by Black Krssantan. Holy mackerel. I put here, where is Fennec? And I'll tell you why later. It's a hell of a
also have that in my notes. I have that same thing in my notes.
Right? And Laura, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this when we get to your thoughts. It's a hell of a fight, and Boba's about to get beaten because he is being thrown around like a rag doll by Krssantan. When when the street gang comes in and holds him off, supposedly, and then the Gamorrean guards come in, and then the gang comes back. Fennec finally shows up after Krssantan has tackled the 2 Gamorrean guards down the staircase a la Bruce Willis and Die Hard, and he is sent into the Rancor pit finally by Fennec Shan. And there's a look between Boba and Fennec. And look, you can take that look and go in 25 different directions. My opinion was Boba looks at Fennec like, where were you? How the hell did you let this happen? So I wonder. We cut to a grand feast. Boba is mad about the food. Fennec said he should enjoy the trappings. Her legs are up on the table like she's chill. And Boba feels he should respond. Everyone is watching, waiting for his move. He has to send a message. But Fennec said he did that by putting Krrsantan in a pit. Then BDA comes in, and the twins are here with a gift. Oh, we have the Hutt twins back. Boba and Fennec walk out to confront them, fully armed and ready. The twins admit that they sent Krssantan, just straight up admit it. Then they apologize, and they want to gift him something. And what do you know? It's a new baby Rancor, a calf, so to speak, with Danny freaking Trejo. Bring in if you're saying Robert Rodriguez, Danny Trejo is not that far behind. He tells them to clear off Tatooine and he'll consider a truce. They say they are leaving, but for a different reason. They were lied to by Mayor Marchese because the territory was promised to another syndicate. They're going back to Hutta because they don't want war. Boba offers them Krssantan back if they renounce all claims to Tatooine. They offer him Krssantan back to Boba as a tribute if he does the same and suggests he sells Krssantan to the gladiators. Instead of doing that, as the Hutts leave, Boba releases Krssantan and gives him a piece of advice to not work with people who are a-holes. So let's stop there. Shannon, a lot here. The attack by Krssantan, Fennec not being around, but then Fennec eventually being the one who throws her little blade at Krssantan and sent him into the Rancor pit. Then the Hutts show up, Boba wanting to respond, and then Krssantan being let go, and we get a Rancor. So talk to me about this whole section of the show. What did you think of it?
Definitely my favorite part of the show. I mean, when the back to tank kind of opens kind of suddenly and you see this giant Wookiee growling at you, tossing Boba back and forth, the electrified brass knuckles. I was like, this is this is something I've been waiting for. I love watching a hero getting tossed back and forth. Anytime Indiana Jones gets the crap beat out of him, it's some of my favorite sequences. And then, this is where I thought the street gang, I liked what they did with them here because they're street urchins. They might be a little tough. They don't know how to fight, though.
No, not at all.
The guy with the blaster runs in. And it's like, why would you do that? You have a long-range weapon. Stand back and shoot. But I thought that was deliberately done, and I thought it was well done. I'm like, that makes sense. Like they're going to be under the tutelage of a warrior. They're going to learn to become better warriors. The Gamorrean guards are low-key becoming one of my favorite parts of the show.
Oh my God. Yes.
They're awesome. Seeing a Wookiee bite and hearing that, that Gamorrean scream, all fantastic. And I think it was one of the Gamorrean guards who gets Krssantan in the back, and you hear that Chewie yell, that the pain that the Wookiee feels, and then Fennec coming out, kind of saving the day. I thought it was yes, this was easily my favorite sequence. I know what you're saying. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not on board that Fennec's gonna betray him yet.
I don't think betrayal.
I was thinking that at the beginning, but I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. But then the Hutts showing up, and you can see these are Hutts that their power is shrinking in the galaxy, because basically they're like, you know what? We don't command what we used to command. Like, hey, sorry, that was us. I love that honesty is the best policy with them. Like, look, yeah, we sent him. It didn't work. We're gonna go. Sorry. Here's a gift, and you get to keep the guy who tried. You do what you want with him. And it's so interesting, and I realize that this is very contradicts my first statement. Danny Trejo showing up did not bother me at all. I mean, very clear. I'm like, that's Danny Trejo. But Danny Trejo with his long hair and his long mustache as a Rancor keeper, I'm like, this makes total sense.
This tracks.
Yep. For Stephen Root, it bothered me. Danny Trejo, not so much. And then just sort of, telegraphing that at some point, Boba Fett's gonna be riding a Rancor. I was like, yeah, this is a blast. Yeah, this whole sequence, fantastic.
Absolutely, Mike. What do you think of this whole sequence? Danny Trejo, everything with Krrsantan, and then of course the Boba Fett. I mean, so Fennec Shan rather. Kind of intrigue here.
Everything with Black Krssantan is amazing. I love him. I love him. I love him. Like, he's great. More of him. He's awesome. Yes. I disagree with Shannon slightly. I did find this whole action sequence a little lackluster. Again, and this is kind of like thematic with the episode. The idea of what happens, I love. Boba is weak. He's at a moment of weakness. He doesn't have his armor on. He's not ready for this. But because he has treated other people with respect, the street gang, the Gamorreans, even Fennec, ultimately, maybe, depending on where she ends up, the people that he has helped along the way show up to help him. That's some basic friendship is magic math, and I love it. So that always works for me. I do think, in addition to feeling the fight was a little bit lackluster, could have been more interesting, I also think they're walking a fine line with Boba. Like, it's fine that he's not at full health. It's fine that he needs the back to tank, but he still needs to be a badass.
Yeah,
and they're walking this line where, like, I really would have preferred that in that final moment with Black Krssantan in the throne room, it was Boba that had that final shot that knocked him into the thing, just reminding us that he's still a badass. Like, and maybe they did it with the Fennec moment because of wherever they're going to go with it, which I'm like 50-50 right now. She's either going to betray him or she's going to look like she's going to betray him and then not. And she's definitely playing angles, but I don't know where her angles land. But then everything with the twins was great. I also agree with Shannon. I don't even think Danny Trejo needs a Star Wars name. He's Danny Trejo Rancor, and that's fine. Like, that is just who he is in Star Wars. I think it's going to be interesting to see where the Hutts land. I do think it's either not great storytelling or just an odd, like, sending Black Krssantan in and then immediately showing up and being like, that was our bad, we're out. It's still a little shady, and I think that there's a little bit of still double dealing. I don't know what their end game is, but clearly, I mean, really, if you think about this, even like in the last episode with the Pykes running that train back and forth, as soon as Jabba was gone, the Pykes made their play on Tatooine, and were clearly doing whatever they wanted, and Bib Fortuna was letting them do whatever, until Boba Fett kind of fucked with them, and then they fucked with him, and then here we are. But it just really feels like the Pykes are really behind everything, probably, and maybe even telling the twins what to do here. And so I don't know what the end game is of bringing the Rancor in, or what they wanted Black Krssantan to do. Like, I just think there's a lot of interesting behind the scenes double cross, triple cross, quadruple cross. But I do hope that we see Black Krssantan again.
Oh, yeah.
Just insofar as I think we're still following this thing of Boba could have done whatever he wanted and just let him go. And said, hey, go do your thing. Don't work for assholes. And then I just love that Wookiee just jogging out of there being like, fuck this shit.
He was running.
That's exactly what it was. But so, yeah, I'm curious to see where it all goes. And I am also with Shannon that Boba Fett riding a Rancor, I'm here for it. Like, the Bantha was cool, John. I will give you that. But Boba Fett riding a Rancor, cooler.
What's funny you bring that up. When we get to the next section, something just became canon when we get to the next section. But yeah, I mean, I like this all. I love seeing Black Krssantan. I want to see more of him. I definitely don't think this is a Cobb Vanth situation where we might not see him again. I think he's absolutely coming back at some point down in the finale. This is a Patton Oswalt finale we're laying out, by the way. It's going to be like, and then Krssantan, and then the Tusken Raiders, and then this, and then that. It's all these people show up. It feels like this is what we're leading to. But I think, Mike, you make an excellent point. Laura, I wonder what your thoughts on this are as you also talk about this section of the show. Are we losing the badassery of Boba? Are we going too far out into making him this kind of zenned out person, and we need to still see the ruthless nature of Boba? Or is this a show that's playing the long game here and saying, just let him go this way, let him go this way, and then eventually he will snap back to the middle and be able to be Zen and a murderous SOB when he needs to be?
You know, I think this is the weakness of having the star of your show be this legacy character that so many people have projected so many things onto, whether that just be in their own headcanon or taking what they're doing from Legends. This was a big risk, I think. And I think that they're kind of paying for it at this point, because we're clearly seeing a lot of pushback with the scale of badassery that we may or may not be getting with Boba. Because I came into this show with really no expectations of what we were going to be doing with Boba. I haven't read the Legends books. I don't care to. Right. I never really cared for the character much before. I didn't think he was really anything. I felt like I was maybe in a better position coming in as more of a blank slate, because I think that it's kind of cool that we never established that he was a master in hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
We knew that he could shoot. That's all we ever knew about him. And so I like that they're not just making him by default badass at every form of combat. We get to see him learn. And I think that that's kind of a fun part of this journey. I have thoughts on Fennec Shand.
Please.
I don't really have a lot of thoughts on whether or not she's going to betray Boba or not. I don't think she is. But my God, give her something to do.
Yeah.
She has had nothing to do in this show since the first episode where we saw her get to do parkour around Tatooine. That was fine. She's had nothing to do since then, and I'm getting a little bit frustrated by it. So I'm not totally sure what they were going for in this episode by leaving her out and having the street game come in and be Boba's rescuers from Black Krssantan. That was an unusual choice. She can sleep. She's entitled to a nap every now and then.
Sure.
She doesn't have to be there all the time. It just was a weird choice because we just haven't seen her do much recently. And I'm getting a little bit frustrated with that. So that's one of my complaints about where we are with her.
I think that's a great point you bring up, Laura. Absolutely. I mean, I think they could take turns sleeping because, like, you know, it could cause issues between, like, you know, you got to be on guard and trusting this gang immediately after you met them, like, I don't know, 8 hours ago, seems like maybe not the smartest decision overall. But you're absolutely right. Why isn't she doing more? Why isn't there more happening? In my opinion, I don't think she's going to betray Boba. I think she's Miller's crossing Boba. And what I mean by that is she's playing this long game to make him see you need to embrace who the hell Boba Fett is if you really want to rule this thing. And so she is kind of putting him in these positions, or she's like trying to guide him into these positions. And the fact that he's not willing to go there, maybe she's going into more extreme situations where she is like allowing him to be in a little bit of trouble so he can finally embrace who he's meant to be. I don't know, but there's a possibility there. And the other thing is, Laura, to go on your point, why does he want to be this crime lord? We have no idea at this point after the third episode why Boba wants to be this crime lord. We still have no reason why he's doing this and why he's taking all this on, why he's dealing with all this nonsense, because clearly this is way more trouble, as the mayor said, than being a bounty hunter. So what is the motivation here? And we haven't seen it yet. Good.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I could be 100% wrong on this. I was wrong about the Tuskens, but I mean, I think we are starting to see.
And Andrew Garfield, just so we're clear. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if we're going to whip out 20 years of right and wrong, we want to really go down.
You know
this
what?
road.
No one's talking about that.
But no, I just think that what we're seeing, and it'll be interesting to go. Like, I don't think the show is going down a road of saying Boba chilling out and respecting people instead of killing them is the bad road, and that he needs to be a badass.
No.
I think
I'm saying he's going too far the other way, and he's got to level out at some point. That's what I think. But okay,
I don't know that that's what. See, I think there might be a version, and I do agree with what you guys are saying about the long game of Boba's doing what he's doing because he thinks it's the right thing to do. He can be badass at any moment that he really wants to. I mean, I still think with Black Krrsantan, he probably should have balled up a little bit and done something, but just something.
Did you say balled up?
Okay. Yeah, but I think that seeing how the death of the Tuskens affected him, ultimately assuming that the Pykes are really behind that, and that the Pykes are kind of behind all of this. Like, the Pykes are arguably at this point in Star Wars timeline more powerful than the Hutts as far as crime lords go, and might be the ultimate in the pyramid unless Emilia Clarke shows up as Kira. But like, I think that he's seeing how these crime lords ruling everybody affect the Tuskens, affect other people. And I think the reason he wants to be crime lord is to like stick it to them. Like, I think he's like, I'm going to fucking take you down for what you did, and I'm going to become a crime lord to do it. And if that's the road they go, I think they are building that motivation pretty clearly.
Well, we haven't seen him say that though. Yeah,
right, for sure.
No, but I think that's what we're getting through the flashbacks. I think that's what we're building to is what is the best position for him to take to be able to strike at his enemy, and it's going to be becoming this crime lord, like, you know, getting you know, these various allies, these other criminals on his side. That's where he's going to go from a position of strength. So I think he knows already. He knows everything that's happening. I think he's playing a long game.
Yeah, but I think Laura's initial point is absolutely correct. Like, we got to see more from Fennec. Like, I think the Star Wars people are relying on the fact that we've seen her in Bad Batch and we've seen her in Mandalorian, so they've already done the work, and that's not true. We need to see more with her here, more showing her skills, more showing her abilities, other than one parkour scene, and hopefully that's coming in the next episode. We shall see.
Well, see, I think in the present day, we've only had 2 action sequences. If I'm like, we had Starcore in the first episode. We didn't really have a present day action sequence in the second episode.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Now we've had the Krssantan attack and what we're about to talk about in a second, which
and Michael makes an excellent point. Why do you need the gang if you give her that spot to fight off Krrsantan and Boba, unless you're leading to something else, which I imagine they might be. All right, let's move on to the last section here. We're in the Rancor pits with Danny Trejo. Sorry, I can't hear myself. Here we go. The Rancor is depressed, and we hear that they're emotionally complex creatures, as most creatures are, I imagine. We hear that he's a calf, and that Trejo's been waiting to train him himself because he wants to make a powerful imprint, because the Rancor, whenever they see the first time they see a human, the first human they see, they make a powerful imprint with him. We hear about the witches of Dathomir riding them through the forest of whatever. I couldn't even write it down. Boba wants to learn to write it, holiday special, and imprint himself on the Rancor. He stands in front of it, goes to pet it. Trejo looks suspicious when Boba gets called away and says, "Don't worry, he'll be back." BB-8 tells Boba the mayor can't see him for 20 days. Boba's like, "F that," shows up with his pretty street gang to see the mayor. The major domo tries to delay them. Fennec threatens him and says he'll just talk to the mayor himself. The domo says he'll just talk to the mayor himself. He jumps into the office and locks the door. Fennec and Boba break in. We get our first Dank Frank, or whatever it is.
Dank
Farrick of this series. He takes off in his land speeder. Boba's biker gang gives chase, and we get an old-fashioned street chase scene. And I mean old-fashioned, like from the Keystone Cops era, with lots of damage, including a Boba painting being split in half, which is a Ralph McQuarrie painting, apparently, or an allusion to Ralph McQuarrie painting. The lead girl, was it Drash? Drash finally takes him out, and Major Domo tells Boba that the mayor is gone and he's working with the Pykes. We go to a transport area to see more Pykes exiting off a Starliner with Boba's biker gang there keeping watch. Fennec says this is the first wave and that they are going to war. All right, Laura Kelly, what do you got from me? We got Trejo with a Rancor. We got Boba saying he's ridden a beast 10 times the size of a bantha. That's essentially the holiday special. And he looks suspicious a little bit, Trejo does. And then the stuff with the Major Domo. Where is the mayor? What's going on here?
I need to address Trejo, which I agree with what you guys said earlier. He looks like he was born to be in a Star Wars. So yes. I am also not being taken out of the episode by seeing him.
Weird.
I welcome.
It's weird why, it just works.
Right? I just welcome it. I am on the record of having just being in love with Rancors. I love any animal that has that cute little underbite that Rancors have. And I think that it's really funny that this one apparently is a calf. It is massive. Yeah. We saw a baby Rancor in Bad Batch. The proportions are not matching up at all with what we're seeing in the show, which is fine. Animation and live action are different. That's okay. But we got to see Omega ride a Rancor, so I'm excited to see Boba Fett ride a Rancor. I also was very much enjoying this sort of like lesson that we were getting in zoology from Danny Trejo, talking about how they imprint on humans and they can be depressed. It really, in that bond that they get with their trainers, makes the whole Malakili Patissa relationship in Return of the Jedi like even sadder. It always made me sad. I know that the Rancor was the bad guy in that scene, but it always made me sad because when that Rancor whimpers right before it dies, it sounds like a dog, and I have a huge problem listening to that scene in particular. But we get a little bit of like baby talk almost from Boba Fett with this Rancor, which I just love. I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't, because it's just putting Boba Fett more in the box of not being badass enough. But I just thought it was really cute and I really appreciated it. The quiet talk that we sort of get between them. This speeder chase scene is just so something. It's so slow. It feels too slow.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was Alex Damon maybe mentioned something about how like, and he reminded me of this, that they are filming this show in the volume. They're using that stagecraft technology that they use in The Mandalorian, and maybe just haven't quite mastered how to use that technology with a chase scene like this, because it just did not feel, the stakes didn't feel right. It just felt a little bit too slow for me. I like the little Easter eggs that we're getting with things like that painting that went by. I noticed a couple of recognizable characters in there. Max Rebo was in there, and it was, you know, the fact that Boba Fett was in there too is just kind of a fun treat. There's one scene, I think, with this Black Krssantan attack where we get, if you slow it down, you can see Boba's armor has it looks like it has maybe the whistling birds on the wrist armor too. Okay. So I'm kind of hoping that we see that at some point. I do like that we got to see the jetpack right at the end of this sequence. It wasn't a lot of jetpack action, but we got to see a little bit, and that's, I'll take it, I guess. I don't know. But the chase sequence was not it. This is not the first time that we've sort of complained about action sequences in this show. I'm really hoping that they are able to sort of step it up later in this season, next season, I don't know, but I imagine that the longer we spend with this stagecraft technology, the better they'll get with it. So I'm fine to just be along for the journey for now.
Yeah, I mean, Laura makes an excellent point, Shannon. Maybe we're saved with the biker gang if this is a badass action sequence, and we see them kind of using their bikes in a certain way. We see them kind of taking the hits, running over. But I mean, it just doesn't quite work. Even when one of them gets knocked off the bike, it looks really comical. But aside from that, and you can talk about the chase, obviously, but what did you think of this idea of bonding with a Rancor, this idea of thinking of Boba riding a Rancor? And he's having these moments, Laura, but he's also having these moments with these pretty vicious beasts. So maybe there's a connection of like, hey, I understand because I am also a bit of a vicious beast. I can connect to you in this way. He's not playing with
a pattern happening for sure. Yeah.
What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, you know what? The scene with the Rancor calf, I mean, I can't say for sure. Like, I never want to say anything definite and get yelled at in the comments. But
good luck.
It sure looks like an animatronic to me. And I'm like, the animatronic looks great. Like, it just looks super, super cool. And I think from the lack of head movement that it had, I mean, that's kind of why I thought, like, okay, this might be real for these close-up shots when he's petting on it. I thought that was all super cool. I've seen people kind of comment on Pasquesi's performance as the Major Domo, and I didn't mind it at the beginning. I was like, oh, I like this kind of obsequious guy. The further we get with him, I'm like, and it's not a baggage type issue that like I'm thinking about him from Veep. But I'm like, there's just something about his performance I'm just not latching on to. Okay. And there are certain performers in action sequences that look good, and there's some that don't look so good. And he's doing what Robert Rodriguez is telling him to do. But all of this, I mean, it just didn't look good. I mean, on the heels of that incredible train sequence, we get one of the kind of goofiest chases. And there's no opportunity to get to know the gang. Like I would like to see their communication. I mean, the moment that they do kind of use their droid enhancements, awesome, great. There's a lot of crap that preceded it that I was like, I wish Boba and Finnick were a more active part of this. I feel like they were the ones that should have ultimately stopped the Major Domo. They were using the gang for they were using the gang to corral the guy versus actually chasing him down. It just didn't look right. It almost looked like they were riding actual scooters and they just kind of took the wheels off. Because even as they're turning, it's a very flat turn versus a bank. I mean, you think about the episode of Mandalorian season 2, when you have that sequence with the speeder bikes and Carl Weathers and Gina Carano and Horatio Sands are all in that like kind of, troop vehicle. You watched how the speeder bikes went down the side of a cliff. That looked odd. Like, I don't know why you couldn't, like, obviously this is a different vehicle, but it didn't have to look so lame.
Well, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just them showing up with the Pykes at the end, this part kind of confused me. I'm like, if you're getting ready for war, do you show up on a commercial spacecraft? It just seems like is this supposed to be a secret? Because you're talking about there's so many of them. It's like, why'd you fly on Southwest then? I mean, that part just didn't quite make sense to me.
But so, it's a Western illusion, right? Because they always arrive on the train. Reference. Yeah, it's kind of like that, a little bit of a Western reference, because like High Noon, the killers are always arriving on a train and always coming on a train. But like,
I mean,
I get your complaint, though. I get your complaint. Just like the American Graffiti thing, right? Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about one of the most powerful crime syndicates in the galaxy, I don't feel like they fly coach. That's just my guess.
A bit of hubris, that's for sure. Yeah, look, I want to say it's okay to not like stuff. I know some of you might be going crazy in the comment section already. This is what was my concern and my worry with Robert Rodriguez. And I have the same concern with Sam Raimi, by the way. Robert Rodriguez, at times, it tends to go towards a certain direction that doesn't 100% work for me. And it's really hard because this other direction he goes is so cool. There's a lot of Desperado, El Mariachi I like, but then he goes other directions. And this felt like Spy Kids in Star Wars. This whole action sequence, Mike, it felt like Spy Kids in Star Wars. It felt like it didn't 100% belong. And this is Robert Rodriguez being the most Robert Rodriguez is that he can be in this. And I didn't 100% like it. I don't know. What did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree. I think first with the whole Rancor thing, Danny Trejo can give me Rancor lessons any day. Like I could have watched that for a half hour and been fine. Because I don't fully trust the Hutts, and because Danny Trejo, I think, always just comes off as slightly suspicious, I couldn't tell if it was just Danny Trejo or if I'm like, oh, is either Danny Trejo or Danny Trejo telling the Rancor what to do going to try and kill Boba, but Boba wins out over the Rancor. So, and as far as like Boba doing the baby talk with the Rancor, like I do think at this point, like this is clearly their choice. They are showing a Boba who has a more interesting sense of humor, who is a bit more sensitive than what we would have assumed if all we knew of him was the badass from Empire Strikes Back. I think it's a clear choice, and I also do think we are going to see him. I think they're, and maybe I'm putting too much on them or expecting too much. I think there's a statement to be made that you can be a stone cold badass when you need to be, and still be the sensitive guy that baby talks around.
Absolutely.
And if they go that way with Boba, I'm 1,000% on board with it. So all the Rancors are, like Laura, I also think Rancors are cool. I was at the right age when Return of the Jedi came out that I thought the Rancor was the coolest thing in that movie. And I loved Bad Batch for that reason. And now we get another one. Like when they rolled up with that Rancor, I was like, my 10-year-old me is in favor of this episode. Then we get to the chase. As far as the Major Domo goes, to Shannon's point, I think the issue with him is in 3 episodes in, he's not changed. He's the same note. Like every time we've seen him, he was obsequious when he showed up at Jabba's palace. He was obsequious when they showed up at the mayor's office. And when he shows up here, he's playing the same beat. They're not doing any variation. He's not getting more annoyed. We're not seeing his patience worn down. We're not seeing the asshole underneath. Like we're just doing the exact same thing. So I kind of feel at this point, like Shannon, you're kind of like, okay, I get it. Like show me another layer to this guy. Yeah. The chase, you guys all said it. I mean, it's a slow motion speeder bike chase through town. Like I actually didn't mind any of the fun gags. The idea of them doing a really fun sort of gag-driven chase through Mos Espa, if it had worked, great.
Of course.
Also, again, with the speeder bike gang, I don't fault them for it. Like the idea of the speeder bike gang chasing him and doing their cool things with their droid-enhanced abilities, like on paper, that all sounds amazing. In execution, that was not it. Like it just was not there. I will say, and I'm 90% sure, 95% sure they did. There's that one protocol droid who like his speeder goes by and then all the speeders go by and it goes, oh. And I swear to God, that's a Goonies reference to Rosalita at the opening. Like, I've seen Goonies so many times in my life that protocol droid sort of just like going across the street and going, oh. I was like, this is Goonies. That's straight up Goonies. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me or if you're a crazy person. And I also agree that it would have been better if it had been more clear that Fennec and Boba were telling the biker gang what to do, or like, you guys go here, you like, it just, the whole thing just felt. And again, I'm with John. This was the Robert Rodriguez that I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah.
This part. And again, like Shannon said, like I agree with Laura that some of the action that we've gotten in the first episode and the third episode leaves a lot to be desired, and you wonder if they are still figuring some things out, or if Robert Rodriguez is figuring some things out. But episode 2 has one of the best action sequences I've seen in Star Wars in years. So it's very uneven, but episode 2, the bar is so high that I still am like, all right, you can still win me over with the episodes you have left. Let's just see where we go. As far as Shannon's point on the Pykes at the end, I didn't see it quite that way. Like, I don't think that this was they're landing to fight. I don't think the Pykes are showing up en masse to be like, we're ready to like kick some ass. Like, I think the Pykes are just showing up because they're like, look, the Hutts are out. I don't think they care about Boba. Like, when Fennec says we're going to war, it's because they're going to have to defend it, because the Pykes are like, look, the twins left. Yeah. Bib is dead. Yeah. Like, we don't care about you. You're a shitty bounty hunter. We're showing up en masse on Star Tours because we're ready to take over. Like, this is our planet now. Like, we're here.
Yeah, it's hubris. It's hubris. Hey, we're in charge. Exactly. It's a great point. And by the way, this is directed by Robert Rodriguez. The last episode that we love so much was not. And so, I know. As we saw with Bert and Bertie and was it Reese Thomas? Like, there's a difference who's directing what and how that kind of lands. Yeah. When you're looking at this. So yeah. Look, if the four of us didn't like the chase sequence because of the execution of it all, I think that says volumes, in my opinion, because Michael would forgive it, I think, as much as possible, as Mike likes to look at the bright side, the good side of things. So if even he has an issue with the chase, I think he got it. Yeah, that was not it. Yeah, exactly. For sure. All right, so there we go. That's the end of the episode. I've said my piece on the action sequence there, and I hope they do. I hope Laura. I hope that's a valid point through Alex, that they're going to be working more with this technology and get it better and better. And so down the road, we'll see even better action sequences using this technology that we can all enjoy. And that wouldn't be the first time. I mean, remember, what is that? What was that anime? Was it Ghosts Within, the Spirits Within, whatever it was from years ago, where they were trying to do the Uncanny Valley thing with that movie? And
Final Fantasy?
Yeah, the Final Fantasy one. And then only now are we getting better at it. And what we saw in Rogue One, a little bit better than what we saw in Final Fantasy. So it just takes some time for technology to catch up and be good and enjoyable, no matter how it's being used. So
let's hope it doesn't take them 25 years. Which I think is
let's hope that they can master it in some way before we get Obi-Wan, because that show is going to be used. I think they're on the record of saying that they use the volume an awful lot in that show. Cassian Andor less so. I think they filmed a lot of exterior stuff with that show in particular. Fair enough.
And next episode's director is Bryce Dallas Howard. So we will see what she brings to episode 4. Hopefully we get a little bit more of what we've been talking about that we enjoyed. We shall see. All right, well, there's our spoiler review episode here for episode 3 of the Book of Boba Fett. Any final words from you all? Mike, start with you.
As we said, I mean, there's definitely some things to not love about this episode. Unlike John, I don't fully see this as just a filler episode. I think we got a lot of information about the Pykes in this episode, a lot of information on Boba's background with the Pykes, and I think I just really love the Pykes. So the fact that like this episode really brought them in force and gave us a Rancor, like not my top episode for sure, but I didn't find this episode to be a stinker either. Like I was satisfied, if not thrilled.
Okay. Well, filler episode could be filling in information, and I think that's what I meant. Laura, what do you think? What did you think of this episode? last words. Yeah.
Sure. I liked the I didn't mention this, but the end of the speeder chase scene, I did kind of like how it ended, because I like how there was another sort of reference to Back to the Future in where he crashes. I like that he crashes into what looks like a bunch of Meilu runs, which I think we've only seen in animation, and they were prominent in Star Wars Rebels, so I thought that was really fun to get to see them in live action. That's just, those little Easter eggs are the shit that I live for. I really hope that we get a return of Black Krrsantan working with Boba Fett in the future, because Boba Fett, as we've seen, has a habit of converting his enemies into allies and then inviting them into his tribe. We're sort of seeing those like life lessons that he took away from his time with the Tuskens. We're seeing them come to play in this modern day. No, we don't know yet what Boba's long game is, but I'm sort of enjoying the ride, as we get there. But when I think about Black Krrsantan and bringing him back, it sort of begs the question for me, are we going to get a live action Afra potentially in this? And that further begs the question, how many cameos are too many cameos? So I'm sure that we're in for more of them. But I do think that it's something that Star Wars maybe needs to start being conscious of in these series.
You just don't you joke about that. I mean, the live action Afra, that would be awesome. Shannon, final thoughts on this episode?
You know what? I thought episode 1 was uneven. I thought episode 2 was great. Episode 3, uneven. Hopefully episode 4 is great. I mean, there was enough good stuff in episode 3 that I don't feel like it was, it's not a wash. Like there's a lot of good stuff that happened. I mean, watching Krssantan, I thought that was a blast. I mean, again, electrified brass knuckles. Awesome. There's enough episodes left in the series for this still to be a big win. And hopefully that's what we get. And in terms of, I think it was episode 2, when Boba Fett said we need a protocol droid, even though 8D8 is doing a great job. I'm wondering if there's room for 000 to show up in some capacity.
You guys, Star Wars nerds are all the same. We get one cameo from a comic book. We get one cameo from a comic book, and we're like, are they all coming?
We're greedy.
Them all in?
Star Wars fans are greedy. Yeah, we can say it.
That's right. But from a good place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna get like 000 or Doc Afra in this episode, but I do think Black Krrsantan existing means that they are all clearly canon and do exist, and probably we will get them all. I mean, like, listen, I'm waiting for Disney Plus to just say they're bringing Doc Afra in as a series, and I'd be fully on board.
Yeah, me too. 1,000%, absolutely. All right, well, my final thoughts of this. We watched it a second time before we did this review, and you know what? The biker gang is not that big of a part of this episode, so I was able to enjoy a lot of what was going on here, especially the Krssantan stuff. I love that we're still touching base with the Native American imagery and what the Native Americans went through in our country, or indigenous people in your respective countries if you are watching from another country. I like that we're not losing that touch, that connection to that, because there's a story, there's a lesson here that is going to come to bear for Boba, and I like that we're building that within him as well. The Fennec Shan stuff, I love that there's a little intrigue here. We don't know which way she's going to go. We don't know how she's thinking about it. Fennec has shown she walks her own path, and she has no problem taking on any legendary bounty hunter, Cad Bane, when she feels like it. So I have a real excitement to see what we're going to get from her overall, and I don't mind the Major Domo so much. I like him; he's a good actor. So I would say that. We'll see if there's more to come for sure. All right, well, thanks everybody for watching this spoiler review episode 3 of the Book of Boba Fett. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at Geek_Buddies, on Instagram at _Geek_Buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
Look, if you are pro-biker gang or anti-biker gang, all are welcome here. As long as you do these things. Click the like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing comment he's got, stuff he's got going on there. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Share with each other what you thought of this episode.
Keep it respectful.
Do not fight with each other.
Yes.
We can all disagree. It cool. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and take a minute and leave some stars and some comments. It helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, retweet this video, post it on your socials, and tell everybody to check out the Geek Buddies and Laura.
Yeah. And speaking of Laura, thanks so much, Laura Kelly, for joining us yet again for another week of these Book of Boba Fett reviews. Laura, where can they find you and everything you got going on in your world?
Come find me on Twitter at @shutup_Laura, where I spent another week screaming about the High Republic, and I am not sorry. Rocha and I host the show The Jedi Way right here on his YouTube channel, and the podcast I host with my friend Alice is called Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, and you can find that on all major podcast platforms.
There you go. All right, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here from the
Geek
Buddies.